I signed one, guys.
I'm not, I know, and we've talked about it, but I don't have it.
Oh,
So
you don't?
I don't know if I ever got it.
Alright.
Any others? Just those three, okay?
Okay, just a reminder on the rules of recusal, that the forms are required for anyone with a real or perceived conflict. And these are the reasons for the recusal. I believe we've covered, I don't think we have any questions on this matter at this time. All right, so public engagement update. So a few weeks ago, we held public workshop number 2. All of the projects were set up around the firehouse. We got a pretty good turnout. We received the project summary, which you all received in your email boxes today. So I do apologize for the late notice. That is a draft. We still have to kind of work our way through it, but I thought it was important to provide the input to you guys now. The public workshop and survey were combined in that document because it's the same questions that were asked. So respondents were asked if the project was a catalytic or transformative project, if it aligned with the goals for the Cooperstown, New York Forward goals, if anything could be improved, and if anything, what they liked specifically about the project. Then those last 2 were open-ended. And again, that was, people were able to kind of fill out forms at the workshop and submit them, or they were able to jump online. We got a really good response rate online. 85% of the responses that were recorded were online responses. 15% of the responses were collected at the workshop. Overall, when we talk about a performance, we're talking about people who felt that the project aligned with at least one Cooperstown, New York Forward goal, and that they felt it would help to transform downtown. People really supported the small project fund. They really supported the Pioneer Alley improvements and the Pioneer Valley microbrewery. Some of the projects that did not perform super well with the public was the Wood Bat Factory, Doubleday Field, the Railroad Inn expansion, and Willowbrook Residential. And the summary that you all received, I think there's a lot of really interesting feedback from the public that was provided regarding that kind of digs into their responses. But that's just kind of a high level look. We did have we had another miscellaneous board. It was that board where we weren't quite sure if they were new or redevelopment projects or if they were in the small projects category. So we kind of ran through those with the public as well. A number of people thought that Hotel Pratt and 52 Pioneer were transformational or catalytic projects that should be elevated into that category. And it pretty precipitously falls off after that. The Veterans Club and Rudy's Wine and Liquor projects also ranked a bit on the higher side, but really in general, for some reason, we saw a jump with Hotel Pratt and 52 Pioneer. So dive into project evaluation. So the purpose of today is to begin to identify and evaluate which projects may end up being priority projects and profiled in the strategic investment plan. Which projects might be pipeline projects, so they're mentioned in the strategic investment plan, but they're not fully profiled. They might be funded through other programs at a later date. They may not quite be ready, or they may be ready in the next 6 months, but that's just not the timeline for this program, or this plan. Start identifying what the buy-in is for small projects. Again, I think we are all pretty familiar about the small project bin at this point. These are funded through a separate pool created through the process. I think we pretty comfortably have that level of support to demonstrate that a small project fund would be valuable for this community. And then I think most importantly, So last but not least, eliminate projects that just are clearly they don't meet the applicable criteria. And again, we still have another meeting and we could schedule another work session. So this is not the end of the line by any means. So we slightly reorganized the criteria, the evaluation criteria worksheets, just to elevate some of the criteria that have been rising to the top with other communities. Those are the project readiness criteria, the positive benefit criteria, and looking a little bit closer at the New York Forward program goals. As you'll see, we have a second slide for every project as we go forward that kind of looks at the Cooperstown New York Forward goals, some elements of project readiness, maybe not all of them. It certainly doesn't take into account the public feedback that we received in the last couple of days. So this first page is really what we're going to focus on. That roughly correlates with this 11 by 17. So you'll see the project readiness criteria is items 1 through 4 on that sheet. The positive benefit criteria is items 5 through 8, and so forth. So you can take your notes kind of all in one place, but the idea is to kind of gain consensus tonight. So I'll start with the miscellaneous projects. I know that we had talked about some of these top projects potentially either remaining in the small project bin or being elevated to a standalone project. I think now would be the opportunity for those who are subject to this discussion to recuse and leave the room if you don't mind, and we can have a chat about that. And I mean, are you comfortable with the decision that you guys emailed us about?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you can probably say it.
Thanks, guys.
So we can start with Rudy's Wine and Liquor. I think the project sponsor has decided that they prefer to see what they can make out with in the small project grant element of it and not try to bolster the project to try and make it larger and meet the national all that stuff. So that's been kind of settled for us. The other ones that we had talked about were Otsego Lodge, the Veterans Club, and the Metro Cleaners Apartment. So I don't know how you guys want to work this discussion. I can jump ahead to the project slides and we can just talk about them that way. Does that work? All right, so let me just jump ahead. All right, so, the Veterans Club, I think we're all pretty familiar with what this project entails. We've talked about the goals that it aligns with. It could diversify the economy by creating some community space, accessible community space. It involves some HVAC improvements and some insulation improvements. So it would be, looking at some sustainability improvements. Within the small, correct me if I'm wrong here, within the small project fund, if it's funded by HCR, there are concerns about it being a membership organization.
Can I just clarify, so the small project fund is a $300,000?
Yes, that's the 300,000, yeah. If it were to get moved up out of that small project and become a priority project in the SIP, this is a nonprofit organization, so a match would not be required. I have not spoken to the project sponsor about whether they are proposing any match. So how do you all feel about this project? Does it warrant moving it up into a priority project?
Are there any facade improvements for this project? Or are they all true?
I believe most of them are internal. We don't.
I think it's an elevator,
It's an elevator, it's
some efficiency upgrades, roof.
repairs and insulation. The idea is that the rooms are not too close.
But not visual. That's not.
Right,
Yes, that's the understanding.
Do we have a breakdown of what if the roof is not fundable, well, how much of the roof is this in these numbers?
I don't remember offhand.
Can we have a list of criteria that differentiated between the small project fund and the major projects?
The big question is whether, the small project fund projects are typically seen as meeting that transformative metric as a group rather than individually. So, whether this rises to that standard by itself, or if it is just sort of a general, improvement that would be good, but maybe if there's 8 or so of them, or 6 of them, the impact is larger. So it's probably the best way to think about it. Some of the projects, obviously, sort of, when you see it, it's a bigger impact versus some of them are, more traditionally. And you can see it in the applications that came in, somewhere like facade work, which is certainly good and impactful, but is it at the same level as adding, a bunch of housing units or, completely restoring a building that's vacant? That's a different question. So typically, I think that this is something that is, sort of typical of the small project fund project. The price is a little high in terms of, because obviously the small project fund is 300,000. Sort of the sweet spot for that would be like a $75,000.
Roof repairs.
So,
Roof repair is 50.
So that knocks it down to 150. It almost seems to me like this should probably stay in the small project fund. I think it would be more competitive to get some of this done. I'm not saying these aren't all great projects,
right.
but I think when we look at the priority projects that were originally submitted as kind of top tier, as big projects, I don't know how this is gonna compete against them.
Right.
And not saying this isn't important to Cooperstown, and like, love the organization, love the concept. I just think we may be doing them a disservice
Right.
by pitting them up against some of these larger, more transformational projects.
yeah, and I agree with Ken as well, and so if that's gonna be vetted by a different group at a different time, do they have the opportunity to revise their application so that it becomes more in that sweet spot?
They have
They have to
submit a new
resubmit.
They have to
application.
submit a renew
Yeah.
application, so somebody could work with them to find an optimal project in that.
Yes, and it may require modification based on, available funding. It may need to be smaller, it may need to be slightly different depending on what the scope is and what that group determines as fundable. Because they can say, we're only doing facade, for instance, at a later date. So, it's not gonna look the same, probably, right?
The one thing I would just add, as a way to think about it, or at least the way I think about it, is there are a lot of public functions at the Vets Club, pancake breakfast, things like that. What are the pieces of this project that serve the public as opposed to just membership? And maybe in that way of thinking about it, it starts to kind of whittle the project down to something that maybe fits better. I don't know the answer, but that's the way I can distinguish between it's a membership organization, but they often are used for public gatherings and are open to do that.
And by whittle it down into something that fits, you mean fits into the small project?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And naturally, just to reiterate that, the reason is because membership organization through New York Forward or HCR at a later point neither funding process is particularly warm to private membership organizations. So the burden is sort of on them to prove that all the extent of the scope is available for public. For instance, I had an HCR call about this project. That's what floors the elevator is going to. So that's sort of it's a barrier to the funding of this project. Not an insurmountable one, but one that's going to come up.
So it would
Is
be,
there a,
yeah,
do you want, you can certainly propose tucking it into small project funding.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we'd be doing a disservice to them to put them in with some of the larger projects we're considering. Because I don't see a way for the state to end up picking them, even if we recommend them. And if we leave them in the small project group, they have a shot to do all of this or some of it. So I would propose we leave them where they are.
can we do a vote or a poll or something?
We can say, we don't have to have a vote per se, we can say is anyone opposed to that or disagree with that?
No opposition. All right. The next one is the Otsego Lodge project. I think this is very much in the same, in a similar wheelhouse here. So this is the project, it's an existing mixed-use building. They're proposing HVAC, lighting upgrades, window replacement, rehabilitation of the facade. This is another example of a project where the items listed are typical of small project, but the total project cost is, just because the building is quite large, is a bit on the higher side. So, again, it's very similar to the last project. So do you guys just want to run through this one? This is worth just keeping in.
Is this a nonprofit?
They are nonprofit. We're a membership organization. Yeah, I think they're nonprofits.
It's nonprofit, but it's also a membership. So it has the same problems, barriers presented.
Are there particular voters that are members only, or are there?
Yeah, yes, and I believe that some of the upgrades are proposed for meeting spaces and office spaces. Some of those office spaces are rented out to the general public, but some are for the lodge. So they would have to figure that out in terms of creating a competitive package, to Jeff's point.
I would say that just in terms of practical day-to-day, there was less public interfacing with this building than with the Vets Club. So if we're gonna look at these things relative to each other, we've probably all been to public events at the Vets Club, and maybe some of us have been to something a lot. In terms of way to distinguish it.
I would propose we leave this one in the small project fund.
A lot of the things they're proposing are really the exterior, the facade. It's
Some
not,
are, HVAC and lighting upgrades, windows for facade.
but isn't
The second
that,
floor office space, that's the meeting area, I believe.
it looked like they were saying they had those, they weren't secured, okay. I had them as, the funding source was owner equity.
Was what?
Owner equity secured. Right, so they weren't, what they were looking at was more the facade, wasn't it, or not? Maybe I misunderstood the application.
There was a request for additional interior work as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so does anybody disagree about this project remaining in the small project bin? Okay. The next project is the apartment over the Metro Cleaner site. So, this is, the proposition is for an apartment with a rooftop deck that would overlook Doubleday Field. The apartment would be accessed from the exterior of the building. You can see some elevations here. Full elevations were provided. So, oh, I meant to put a check mark next to sustainability. In general, right, this is another one where it's proposing an apartment unit that's not typical of the small, that would typically be funded by the small project fund. It is proposing housing, but you all are familiar with some of the, projects, some of the larger projects on this list. So the question is really how this weighs in.
So you're saying because of the housing, it should go into a different category?
It doesn't, it doesn't really fit in small projects in terms of what small projects would fund. It is technically a redevelopment project.
Okay. Do you know if they can meet the
I believe that they can, but I don't know. I have to confirm, I still have to confirm that.
If there's any that are on the fence, we certainly don't have to, reserve bookmark it.
Yeah.
And the Verge can grab more information from them and can contact you all. We don't have to, make a firm decision on something like this if it's sort of on the fence.
It may just be more info needed.
Right.
Although Adriana's kind of making it clear it's not really on the fence.
But this project has
Yeah.
come before the village before from H Park.
It has?
Yes.
Okay. So it's
And I believe it was approved by H Park.
okay, that's a good sign. In terms of timeline.
I think it's reasonable, just based on the criteria, I think it's reasonable to move this into the larger fund. Provided that they can hit the match that we set on the larger fund.
Right.
Whether or not, how competitive it will be, is kind of up to the project sponsor. But based on the criteria, I don't think it doesn't meet the criteria for small project fund. And so, just based on criteria, it should probably be
Default.
What was that?
Okay, so we
By
can get
default.
more information on this one and see if they can meet the match requirement for starters.
Start to build out
And
the
then we'll go
project.
from there.
if they can do that, I think it should be correct.
So you're putting it in a different category,
Yeah, well.
basically.
We're just holding it right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any objections to that course of action? Awesome.
Okay. And then I just want to continue on the, with these miscellaneous projects so that we can just get them cleaned up. So what I'm seeing right now is, whoops. Okay. So, in terms of summary, we're looking at Metro Cleaners moving out of the small project, the others staying into small project. The last item that we need to clarify is the last three items on this list, 21 Railroad Ave, Mickey's Place, and 55 Grove Street, are all, so a sidewalk rehabilitation project is not really, it's not gonna be considered for a small project. It's not eligible. The Mickey's Place project is also surface parking, which is really not an eligible project. And then 55 Grove Street is not contiguous to the study area at all, and therefore cannot be considered. So I just would like confirmation from the LPC that these three projects are deemed ineligible projects. Are there anybody who disagrees with that statement? Okay, so the Key Bank project.
I just have a question,
Yes.
going back to the slide before that one, and whether maybe I was misreading, or was it just an example, but you had Ruby's crossed out,
Yeah.
aren't we crossing out Metro Cleaners?
Yeah, I guess technically Metro Cleaners is just moving.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah, sorry, that was my symbology.
The cross is misleading.
Poor, yes.
Cross out is misleading.
Excuse me.
It's being tucked into the small project fund justification.
Yes. Okay, Key Bank. So we received some updated information from project sponsors, the Key Bank property, we received a revised project cost estimate. The project sponsor indicated that they are not interested in changing their New York Forward request. So the total project cost did go up, but the request did not. So we're not looking at too many changes. And so with that, we can run through the project criteria, if you would like. And I don't know if anybody else to lead this. I'm realizing I did not save myself a criteria sheet. Can I still have criteria?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take notes on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think as we go through this, I think LaBerge's done a good job of evaluating kind of 1, 2, 3, and 4 on our project evaluation sheet. So I think this project kind of meets all of those 1 through 4. I think we want to center the discussion is around this transformative potential and catalytic potential, because those are going to be 2 key criteria when we propose a much larger slate of projects than the 4.5 million for the state to consider. And they're going to look at those 2 things, and I believe that when in their evaluation, those will rise to the top. So I'll just throw it out there for if anybody has any comments about, if they feel that this has transformative potential for the Main Street area.
Yes.
100%.
All right, anybody disagree with that? Catalytic potential, what we mean there is generating additional investment or business activity inside of the survey area.
Absolutely.
Okay. Project includes an affordable housing component based on federal housing and urban development. I don't know that based on those, I don't think any of the housing projects meet those criteria, so we can kind of.
Can I ask a question about that addition? Because I think we had a conversation about, when we talk about affordable housing, right? How are we gonna measure affordable, and then, so which is great, we now have a definition. But I think there was a second part of that conversation is it a priority of Main Street to have those definition of housing on Main Street? And I'm not saying one way or the other. I mean, I think they're important for the type of workers that we bring into our community, and we want everybody to have an opportunity to live on Main Street. So I'm just asking is, I don't remember having the conversation of that level of housing or that affordability being a New York forward Cooperstown priority. Am I making my question clear?
Yeah, I think you guys talk about diversity of housing options for a range of people. But I believe that the strategies are short of specifying affordable on Main Street. So, this might just be something that the LPC as a group doesn't, weigh so heavily.
Okay. Well, I mean, to Ken's point, if nobody's gonna meet that, and we have
We don't
that.
need to talk about
Playing
it.
field, we don't have to.
That's not right now, that could potentially change.
Okay.
And then the next question there, anticipated community and economic benefits associated with this project.
Yes.
All right, good consensus there. New York Forward program goals, I would you have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 there. I don't know if anybody wants to throw out numbers that they feel this project kind of aligns with, or if you want to step through each one of them. Anybody have an opinion there?
I think 9 fits the bill.
Okay.
11, 12.
Or yeses, you're saying?
Yeses.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think by nature of 10, and the size of the project, do they qualify for, they have to adhere to 10?
Yes.
Yes, so that's a yes.
I don't see anything that they don't meet.
Uh,
14
14?
probably isn't, in their wheelhouse.
And I think we might be able to dive in a little bit more on 15 with forward planning when they do their economic analysis in terms of the population of folks.
Mhm.
Project like this would attract. Okay.
Well, you know what, I'm gonna, I know it's a little bit of a stretch, but I may question 14 a little bit, that if it becomes a full-scale residential facility, I think the surrounding area, which is accessed by the farmer's market, it's accessed by the front of Doubleday, I think that just having more people there by nature kind of will clean up that kind of alley. So I do think that it has the opportunity to enhance public space.
So we decided we were checking box 13,
No, that was 14.
14 we're checking, 15,
We don't know.
diversity of population.
Austin's
Yeah.
probably a need more info, I mean, check.
Yeah, so we can, I'll put a question mark there. 14, you guys agree with? Public spaces?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just curious, with all those people going to be in there, where do they put their cars?
Fair question.
I hate to ask.
Valid.
There is no parking requirement for any of the apartments on Main Street. That's not part of our zoning law. So for pretty much 9 months of the year, they would be able to park in Doubleday. And they would also be able to use Fowler Lot with a parking permit. Can I just, so we liked 14 on that, because I'm still not, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because
It's a
it's,
stretch.
I'm sorry?
I agree, I think it's a little bit of a stretch, I don't know if that will
Yeah.
necessarily enhance public space.
When I think of a public space, I think of, the art association upstairs, or the ballroom, or the public spaces that are used in the Vets Club, something like that. I don't see it as this one, but, I'm sorry.
No, I think, I think we got
It's got a lot of yeses.
yeah.
All right.
I mean, I think we have a lot of projects to go through, so I think we don't have to make a super final decision, because I think the idea is that we'll gather the feedback today and then provide this feedback back out to the committee at the next meeting, and everybody can see what it looks like on paper. And we can start to compare and contrast and start to move things around in the pecking order. So if you want to flip over to the back side of this sheet, alternative funding sources available that may be more appropriate for this project. I don't think that's the case.
I mean, there are
alternative
all
funding
alternative
sources,
funding sources.
but I don't know that they may be more appropriate. To me, the two things are,
Yeah,
I think this is totally appropriate in the New York Forward funds. So I would say no for that one, which is a good thing, I guess. Project has the potential to leverage additional private and/or public funds.
Yes.
Okay. Project meets the preferred matching funds for this project type. That's a yes for the numbers.
Yes.
Project aligns with local plans and goals. I would say yes. Project aligns with regional plans and goals. I would say yes again. And then an adequate level of public support. I don't know if you want to.
I can pull up.
Was it at the top or was it at the bottom, right?
It was somewhere in the middle. 48% felt that it aligned with at least one goal, and 49% felt that it was transformative.
So I would say that's a yes as well. Anybody disagree? Project creates a diversity of housing options appropriate for seniors, young professional families, Cooperstown workforce.
Yes.
Yes.
Project furthers diversification of businesses to support the needs of Cooperstown's residents. I don't know that this is not really applicable. Project connects people to places by creating a vibrant, safe, and accessible public realm. Again, not really part of the criteria. Promotes a more environmentally sustainable downtown through public infrastructure improvements or by encouraging decarbonization efforts. I would say that's a yes, because this project will be required to meet those decarbonization requirements.
And contribute to a walkable downtown.
Beautiful.
Great.
Any other comments on that one before we move on? Thank you.
Ken is in control.
We're gonna try and get you out of here by 6:30, but still do a diligent job on this, so I appreciate you all coming along for the ride.
All right, so 134 Main similarly also had a revised cost estimate, and,
You're trying to trick me by putting these on a big spreadsheet in totally random order.
oh, no, they're not in random order.
They're not in order, your slideshow.
Oh, yes, oh, I'm sorry, yes, you're right. Well, Ken, I'm filling this one out with you. I know, I realized that, it was a lot.
It's all good.
All right, so, also got a revised project cost, and not a revised forward request, so, we got updated professional estimates, that have been provided. We said, for Cooperstown goals, we said that it would diversify housing. This is, four two-bedroom apartments for long-term rentals. So we're looking at housing, we're looking at sustainability, because the improvement of these would definitely improve the, insulation, and of course, housing downtown is walkability. For regulatory considerations, we're looking at a building permit, HPAR review, probably SHPO review. And otherwise, in terms of project readiness, it's a pretty straightforward project. So if you want to jump into 134 Main, Ken, do it.
So we're checking off 1 through 4 based on your analysis?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Now the important question, transformative potential. Catalytic.
Medium, I would say. Not like, compared to the previous project. There's not a box for me.
I'll put it in, that's fine. Any other thoughts on catalytic?
I mean, any addition to long-term housing on Main Street is gonna have an impact. I mean, if you have 8 people living across the street from Rudy's, that's gonna happen.
We'll need to install a crosswalk.
They're gonna come in at 45, man. Yeah.
All right, we're skipping number 7, number 8, anticipated community economic benefits associated with the project. Yes. All right, New York Forward Program goals, number 9. Provides amenities that support and enhance downtown living quality of life. Number 10, increases energy efficiency. Is this
over?
It doesn't require it. The project sponsor has indicated that he's interested in just voluntarily, doing like stretch code, I think, but I can confirm that.
okay? Put a question mark on number 10. Number 11, results in the growth of low-rated property tax base. Create an active downtown, strong sense of place. I think 13 is probably not applicable.
Well, I mean, you think about the 2 businesses on the ground, on the commercial side that have been renovated and are actively being used and diversified. So, you know, if they're well maintained and there are people there, I think even if those stores turn over, then it's creating additional jobs. Right? I mean, you want a vibrant, I mean, that's the beauty of it, right? Is you have a mixed view.
Does this include facade outside the building?
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
So I would agree with you. Anybody disagree? 14, space for the arts, cultural events.
No.
And diversifying population through broadening of housing and employment opportunities.
Yes.
Great. Over the backside, alternative funding sources available that may be more appropriate. You guys want to comment? I don't think there's anything that's more appropriate. There may be other funding sources available.
There would be other funding sources similar to Lemon Green, it would be the same level.
So we'll mark that one as no. Potential to leverage additional private and/or public funds. I see not.
It's leveraging a fair amount of private funding, so.
Great. Meets a preferred matching funds for this project type.
Yes.
Great.
I can jump in with the local regional and, I can jump in with the local planning goals if you'd like.
Yep, absolutely.
I would say yes to the top two, and in terms of the level of support, it's right after Key Bank. 47% aligns with goals, 43% said it's transformative. So I would say yes.
I would say yes as well.
And then Cooperstown goals, we have those two. Does anybody disagree with the assessment that's on the projected?
Diversity of housing and sustainability.
Yeah, that was,
Sustainability is a question until that's confirmed.
it's a, yes, I'll put that out question mark. Okay.
Number 23 there.
Yeah.
Supports residents and visitors, to Carolyn's point, if there's businesses on the ground floor, rehabbing the building,
Okay.
probably would check that one as well.
Anyone disagree with that change? Okay. Yes, yes, no, maybe. Okay.
Any further discussion on 134 Main?
Okay, so, the notebook, we haven't gotten any updated info on this guy. We know that, SHPO review may be a challenge. We know that, site plan review may be a challenge to timeline. Or at least, those are my, thoughts on the matter. In terms of, and so those are some important regulatory considerations. So under project readiness, I would say for number 2, the answer is no. And for number 4, while the project might have the ability to break ground, the timeline, I would say is an important question. Does anybody disagree with that assessment?
This one essentially has more significant barriers in the theory because it's demolishing a listed historic property. So that doesn't mean it's not doable or anything, but it just has a sort of higher burden than some of the other projects to get over that hump to approval, if that makes sense. So
Have we determined if this project could be smaller if the historic structure becomes a problem for part of it?
Yeah, not.
Because this is two separate structures.
Yes, it's two separate properties.
Two structures and properties, they're proposing to merge the 2 parcels.
So I think that would be important to understand. If it could be part of the project is completed, then then you're not dead in the water if you have a problem with the historic approval was demolished the building, as we all have discussed previously.
The second house probably wouldn't,
It's not,
it wouldn't create as much
it could come down.
adversity about being demolished,
Okay.
which would be the.
Has the sponsor looked at SHPO at all up to this point, do we know?
We haven't gotten information from the sponsor, but you.
the bigger, I would consider the bigger barrier probably is the local. because that has a stronger control mechanism, it has a legal control mechanism of the project. So, you know, that's something for the group to consider with your, I can't really comment on that. Adriana can't really comment on that, all we can get is feedback and sort of, you know, it's up to the group to consider, you know, the project sponsor's ability to work with the local boards to get a project done, essentially. And the scope, yeah, sure, the scope might change a little bit. You know, we don't want to see it change too much because the funding award is the funding award, and if it changes, you know, substantially, that sort of is a different conversation, but certainly the site plan, you know, that's all stuff that happens later, you know, we're understanding that. But I think the question is, you know, whether the LPC sees that as a, how much of a red flag that is for consideration. I mean, obviously, it's a concern. All the projects have to go through, you know, local review, planning review process. In Cooperstown, that's more extensive than some other communities, and the historic board is particularly challenging for this project. That's all. It doesn't mean the project couldn't happen. It doesn't mean it can't get approval. It might mean the timeline is impacted because they have to do more work to get there. That's not the end of the world. There's a 5-year, you know, length of time for the project to finish, but we want to see the project break ground in 2 years.
I do think I'm sorry. LaBerge, you know, has obviously followed up with a lot of these and had reached out, and we were all sent that response of the ZEO, the village ZEO, because there were particular questions on certain projects. So that I thought was really informative in some respects, because it does point out that HPARB certificate of appropriateness is needed before there can be an Otsego County building permit issued. So there are just considerations on this one.
Are there other funding options down the road that would encourage this project to start moving forward and going through regulatory process that if it succeeded, there's ways we could point, I mean, obviously not in this, but we've talked about how this builds on further projects. Can we help make it happen if he got through the hurdles on his own outside of us?
I don't think to the extent of funding, the 50%, but we've had conversations with Empire State Development in terms of the fact that New York, you know, housing has become a statewide issue, and Empire State Development doesn't fund it. But I think there may be some appetite at the state to free up some funding sources for housing. So to your answer is yes, to this extent, no.
Yeah.
But to Ken's question, if you went to the project sponsor and asked them to reduce the project size and just use one of the parcels, does that look like a new, would we accept a modification, or does that look like a new application and not eligible?
That would be a modification, but it's not my project, but if you're having the size of a housing development, it could make it
maybe non-certified.
So, and it's also up to the sponsor, you know, the committee could certainly recommend, or, you know, ask for information about the plans to deal with SHPO and the Historic Review Board locally, and, you know, what considerations they've given that, and, you know, what they are capable of doing when the time comes, in terms of changes to the project. So, you know, that's certainly something you could ask for between now and next month.
I think if we could get some clarification on that, whether the project is universal or it needs to be both, and then how concerned the project sponsor is with the necessary approvals. I think we just need to get at least as much of an honest review as we can on it, and then we can discuss further. Once we have that information, does that make sense to everybody?
Do you want to still want to do this though, and if?
I think it's worth running through this so that we have the rest of this, because I think it's only one criteria. So I think we need to consider everything else.
So,
Transformative,
Yeah.
catalytic,
Yes.
and then anticipated community economic benefits associated. All right, and goals, I would say that this would be very similar to the other housing projects we have looked at so far. Enhancing downtown quality of life, increasing energy efficiency, growing the local property tax base, active downtown with a strong sense of place, job opportunities for a variety of skills and salaries. Number 13,
Yes.
everybody feel about that? Yeah. 14, I don't think public spaces for arts and culture fits here. And then 15, I would check that box as well.
can we go back to 13? I didn't quite
I have,
get consensus on that.
yep, 13 I have marked, I do not have checked.
I don't, without it being a mixed use, I don't have it checked either.
Yeah.
Any disagreement? Right. Funding, so similar with alternative funding sources again, probably not to the degree that you're looking.
Leveraging additional private and or public funds.
Yes.
Preferred matching funds for this project type, I think we need that.
They do need that.
Yeah, didn't they below the preferred? They have 66%, right? Is it 58?
Did they do 58?
So I'm just,
The required is 50 and then the preferred was 60.
It's
no,
not
no,
60, it's not preferred.
Okay, so it does need a preferred match.
Right.
Good catch. Aligns with local plans and goals.
I would say yes to both local and regional. Level of support, that was on the lower side.
We move on.
We could dive into I can dive into it.
Because you're knocking down the historic house.
I think that
Do
is.
people know, I guess if I were filling out the survey, I'm just curious as to
That was the general comments, had to do with,
how much I can do in time.
really generally speaking, the historic impact and the visual presentation.
and if I remember, part of it was people saying it's not downtown.
But
It's part of the project area,
it's
but it's
study
not downtown. That might be a different thing.
Yeah.
But I would say, just as the other side, why some other things are skewed so much higher, I'd be curious. I mean, things are like out of whack, there's like a range, and then there's things that are like way high, and it just strikes me as odd. Maybe it's the online nature of the view, I mean, don't know.
Yeah, we can certainly ask for the in-person one to be pulled separately, I think.
Yeah,
We could do that.
yeah.
Like the survey that had everything from 0 to 4, and it has 30. And it's so, weird student.
Yeah, you mean for that last question?
I'm just looking at kind of the data of who's where, and it just, there are outliers that I would think require a little looking into.
And so what's interesting too, if you guys look at the actual summary the open house summary. I printed it and I have it, but, people who don't feel like it would transform downtown did provide feedback on why they liked the project as well. So you'll see some where it's no, but also people do like the project. So,
It's not as cut and dry
It's
as
not as
the
cut-
percentage is being.
Yes.
You have to dive into the comments to see what goes there.
It's not a building issue.
yeah, so, if you guys don't feel comfortable answering the public feedback question now, you wanna dive into the results, feel free to do that, we can come back to it.
Let's hold that one as a question mark. Number 22, diversity of housing, I think that's a yes. Furthers diversification of business, I would say that's probably a no. Project connects people, I would say that in the public realm, I'd say that's probably no. Project promotes more environmentally sustainable downtown, I would say that's definitely a yes, it's building the super high standards.
I would disagree with 23, because I think any reasonable addition of long-term housing is going to make different demands on the business community in terms of what is served. So if you look at this as, how many units was it? 13? Line 4?
Yeah.
13 new units, let's say 20-ish people that are here year-round, all of a sudden they're gonna wanna see things on Main Street, they're gonna encourage certain businesses and not others, so not as much as 21 units and 50 people, but the more year-round residents, the more Main Street is gonna have to adapt to it, would be my guess, but Matt, you have any thoughts on that?
More people, more business.
More business, right?
Yeah.
Other thoughts?
That's a good point, I'd agree.
So that's a yes.
And I would probably back up and change number 23 for the Key Bank project.
Okay.
Which is, I think, if you're making that argument for that many units.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We
53 projects to think of it, but know that.
all right, any other comments or thoughts on this project? Great.
Alright, so railroad expansion, we got some clarity on this project. They are looking at 3 freestanding long-term residential units. A sketch plan was provided that made it look kind of like, townhome attached type units. The zoning enforcement officer did opine on this one that it would meet the, it would be allowed through a special use permit. He says, I do not see any issues that would prevent the Board of Trustees from amending the special use permit to accommodate this proposal. So those are the regulatory considerations that everyone should be aware of for the project. In terms of project readiness, and then the timeline would be dependent on local agency review. It would need APRB review, SHPO review as well. From a public feedback standpoint, just to jump on that, this project was on the lower end of the feedback in terms of the goals that it meets and the transformative impact. So
We feel like we have site control, no regulatory challenges, other ones we've addressed.
yeah, I think,
Capacity to implement the project,
Yeah.
ability for it to ground in 2 years, we're all comfortable with those. All right, transformative potential.
Moderate, I mean, like I said, any long-term housing is gonna be an addition to the scene. But, 3 is not as many as 13 or as many as 21, so.
Other thoughts? Any other comments? We would mark it down as moderately transformational. Catalytic potential?
I mean, overall, the last bunch of years on Railroad Avenue has shown how you can change an entire zone district by having the right zoning and encouraging businesses and residential, so it is an additive, I'm sure, if you own Spurbeck's, having more people living on the street, doesn't matter to you. Just a guess.
We'll put an M back in there,
Sure.
matter.
Alright.
And then the last one there, anticipated community economic benefits associated with the project. I'd say absolutely. Yes. All right, and now on to the New York Forward program goals. I would say this is very similar to the other housing projects. I don't know why this would be substantially different. So that checks off 9, 10. Do we know about energy efficiency on this?
It would be the same, I'll ask a question, I'll just to confirm,
Not required because of the size, right?
not required.
Okay, so we'll put that down as a question mark. 11 checked off, 12 checked off. 13, no, I don't think we answered yes on any of that for any of the other ones. No on the public art space, and then diversifying population through broadening housing employment opportunities, I would say yes. On to the funding criteria, I think again, like all the other housing projects, there may be other sources available, but not more appropriate. This has the ability to leverage additional private and public funds. And does this meet the preferred match for the project type? Yes. Yes. I don't know if you want to talk about the goals, the alignment.
Yeah, so it aligns with, local and regional plans. And again, it is on the bottom in terms of the performance of the project from the public outreach standpoint. If you guys feel like you want to put a pin in that, you can feel free to do that. If that may, in the next round of review, play a stronger role, that public input element to it, so maybe, I'll just put a pin on that one.
Sounds good. And then for the Cooperstown goals, I would say 22 is a yes. 23, I think we decided that any housing helps with diversity of business downtown. There's a recent discussion there. 24, I think is no, as far as accessibility in the public realm. And then environmentally sustainable downtown, I think we need to, that's a question mark, correct?
Yeah. All right. With that, we got a revised request based on our conversation the last time. So we're looking at a closer, they lowered their funding request. Yep, they lowered the funding request. Based off of the zoning enforcement officer's letter, we would be looking at the need for a zoning amendment or variance. The zoning enforcement officer seemed to believe that the town board is addressing that at the moment, so this will likely not be an issue by the time the strategic investment plan is adopted. However, the LPC may want to review the public feedback on it. HPARC review, SHPO review, and site plan review, I would say, is similar to some of the other larger projects that we've discussed in terms of the considerations for timeline, and, public input. And that's also kind of on the lower end of the public interest. Actually, is at the bottom. All right, so then, in terms of, they already have site control, so number 1 is a yes. Regulatory challenges, I just highlighted,
Yeah.
3 is a yes. And then 2 and 4 are relatively intertwined, so I would defer to the LPC on those, and that was
What? So 3 and 4 are not clear cut for you?
2 and 4.
So because it would require zoning and
Got it, okay.
board variance.
And I think there are also questions and concerns from the public about like the size of the building, and it would also require site plan review, HPARB review, even though it's not a listed building.
It has an impact.
It has an impact on the historic nature of the area.
I think one of the larger concerns from the LPC was the size of it in relation to Dunwoody Field.
Yeah, we haven't gotten any updated drawings.
So I'm gonna put a pin in that one and say there's some concerns there, but I don't think there's any showstoppers. Is that fair? Transformative potential of this project.
Elements that fundamentally change downtown.
Given the size of the project, transform things.
Takes an existing use and just enlarges a building for existing use. It's not diversifying a business economy.
I don't know that this is transformational for Main Street. I do think it would be certainly a catalytic project.
Any other thoughts?
I would say it's transformative, but I don't know in the way that we want it to do. So I guess it's transformative, but it would be in I guess from my perspective, but that's why it's kind of weird,
That's it.
it's big.
Yeah, just given the size, it's transformative.
Well, I like what Ken said about catalytic. The emphasis might just be more on the catalytic element of it.
I would agree with that, and sit on the back of the mayor, is that you're just enhancing the existing use, so I don't think it's transformative in that manner.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting.
You can have one or the other.
So why don't we give it a solid maybe on transformational and a yes on catalytic?
Okay.
Yes.
I'd give it a no on transformation.
Anybody else want
What did you say?
I'm giving it a no on transformation.
You got it with 2.
I agree.
It's not like new housing or.
to, any disagreement with changing transformational to no?
And then we can mitigate the negative part.
All right.
No, yes. Housing is not relevant. And community and economic benefits.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Amenities, yep. Number 9, amenities that support and enhance downtown living and quality of life. This,
Not living in quality of life.
to me, this is a tourism-related business.
Okay.
That, I don't know that it checks that box for me. I don't know if anybody wants to disagree.
Totally.
Energy efficiency, do we,
I don't think it needs to.
It's
not operated in the winter.
Currently, it's not operated in the winter,
Right.
but the interior space, I don't remember offhand if this requires, I think it does.
It's over 5,000 square feet.
Yeah, then it would require.
okay, so we'll check the D-card box. Growth in local property tax, I would assume that's a big yes. Active downtown with a strong sense of place.
Yeah.
I would say that's a yes. Attracts, creates businesses or provide job opportunities, I would say that's a yes. Project enhances public spaces for arts and cultural events, I would say that's a no. Project aids in diversifying the population through broadening of housing and employment opportunities. I would also say that's probably no.
I'll say based on the seasonal aspect, I think that contributes to the no.
Okay. Alternative funding sources available for this type of project?
There are some.
Well, I felt the answer though was no. It's appropriate, right?
That may be more appropriate for this project?
No. I was-
There are none.
Correct.
Okay. Potential to leverage additional private and or public funds
Yes.
and preferred match for project type.
I just read it.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Okay.
It does align, I don't see how any of these really don't align with local plans and goals or regional plans and goals. And then the level of support is quite low. If you wanna dive into that, you can come back to it.
That low makes sense to me, like based on the community. The ones that were super high didn't make good sense.
Okay. So we'll put
Just put no on that.
no on that one.
Comfortable now. All right. And then, just to move things along, do you mind if we just touch base on this one? So diversifying housing is a no, diversified economy, we said yes, improved connectivity, no, and then sustainability would be a yes. Okay, any other comments?
Wait, jumping back one, number 23. Is that a yes or a no?
Yes.
Uh,
Diversification of businesses.
but it talks about and provide year-round interest.
It also says visitors, so if there was like a enclosed batting cage, I mean, conceivably it would be a.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's
It's vague. We don't know if it's year-round or seasonal, do we?
I don't think the batting cages are year-round, but the inside, I believe it's, you might be being confused because I think the current use is not year-round.
There's like a video arcade with this, right?
Yeah, there's like a,
Gaming
yeah.
room.
Alright, so it's
Yeah.
intended to be open.
It would be.
Yes, it's intended to be open year-round. I think that was a major push on that one. Okay, so you guys are still comfortable with 23 being a yes? All right, so 53 Pioneer, we've had some representatives out to the site to work with the group, looking at what needs to be done. Total project cost got increased, but the group feels that they have money in the bank as well as the ability to fundraise. So we've had a number of talks with this group on this project. They have an endowment, they have a building fund. They're working with a professional fundraiser right now to re-up anything that gets used to make sure that they have operational costs covered. They said that they can provide any documentation that's needed by DOS. They confirmed the project costs and are but they have not yet confirmed whether or not they initial indications are yes, but I'm waiting for that in writing.
Are they a nonprofit?
They're a nonprofit, so it'd be 10% preferred.
A preferred, okay,
Yes,
alright.
yeah, it'd be a preferred match of 10%. They also mentioned that they noted, they recently became aware of some New York Culture and Arts grant opportunities And so they're going to be looking into that. It's just, I think, another element of understanding that they will likely have the ability to finance this project. If they were to receive the funds from NICA, that would really help a lot with the process, so. And then otherwise, I think this project, they have a lot of people who are involved, who have been involved in this project for a long time, who are pretty ready to go. So I would say that this all appears feasible. They've received a number of reviews and approvals from both SHPO and ACARB. I defer to the LPC if you think that there are any like true regulatory hurdles for this group, but I compared to some others, I don't see.
Let's go ahead and check boxes 1 through 4.
Perfect.
Transformative potential.
I would say so. We're taking a building with no facade for several years and making a public space, which would be really instrumental in that area.
Other thoughts? We'll mark it as transformative and analytic.
Other things happen.
All right. On to the aligns with New York State Forward goals. I would say that this certainly would enhance downtown living and quality of life. Energy efficiency, you know, that's
They do plan to incorporate.
okay. So we'll check under 10. Does not result in the growth of local property taxes since they are a nonprofit. Active downtown and sense of place, I would say yes for number 12. Attracts businesses that provide job opportunities for valued skills and salaries, I would say no. 14, enhances public spaces for arts and culture. Yeah. That's what it's all about. Diversifying population, broadening of housing and employment opportunities. No. Funding criteria, alternative funding sources.
Do you have the agenda? I don't know that it would fully fund the project.
Yeah, or more appropriate. Leverage additional private and or public funds. I would say yes. Glad to hear they're working with a fundraiser. Preferred matching funds for this project type, I think that's still a question, right? Because 10 is deferred.
It's a question.
It's a question, yeah. They've indicated that they can. But
So are they aware that?
but I would like that from their board.
Okay.
Yeah.
So by the time we submit this, they know that they'd be better off committing that match. Like we said,
Yes,
with
they
zero,
understand there's a
but with the
preferred.
idea that they're thinking about it, doesn't mean it.
Correct, yes.
If you want to comment on local plans and goals,
Yeah.
regional plans and goals.
Yep, so 19 and 20 are definitely yes, and 53 Pioneer ranked a 56% in terms of alignment with goals and a 58% in terms of transformative. So I would say yes.
Yes. All right, New York Forward goals, number 22, no. Supports the needs of Cooperstown's residents and provide year-round interest, I would say yes. Connects people by creating vibrant, safe, accessible public grounds, I would say no. And more environmentally sustainable downtown.
Yes, they are not required, but they plan to anyway. All right.
Any other comments on the Pioneer?
So this project, I'm in conversation with the project sponsor, like, as of today, so I wasn't able to get the updated information that everyone had asked for. I believe that the match, can be met. The considerations for the LPC for this project, this is proposed to be a microbrewery. It's pretty limited by the amount of space in this yellow building. There are plans and thoughts that, again, I'm just asking the project sponsor to send those in, redo the front of the building with some nice big kind of storefront windows, more typical of the facades in the area. But there would not really be, the serving of the beer would occur at the Hotel Pratt. So there's kind of a combination, like a synergy there. I don't know the degree to which there would be any like tastings or anything like that, but it's really more of getting a facelift on this building, an active business in that building that's related to another active business and would also contribute to other local bars in the area. They could order kegs and stuff like that from these guys. The ZEO has opined that this would technically be a light manufacturing use, which is not permitted in this zoning district. So a use variance would be needed, or a zoning amendment, which is a relative hurdle. But, so the LPC should consider those considerations, of course, again, the kind of economic considerations as well. But I, again, am in conversation with this project sponsor, so your feedback and any questions you guys have on this project, I can convey to them.
Is there a discharge issue?
Well, we don't know if there's a discharge issue because we haven't gotten all of the information, like we haven't performed secret on the project.
The capacity for implementation being unclear. Does the project sponsor have someone who knows how to make beer, who has a microbrewery? Yeah.
They submitted a Google article
Of who's gonna run it?
of how to make beer.
Oh.
That's coming to me.
Okay.
I mean, when did this
It was in the project packet, right?
Yeah, that's.
when the distillery opened, they had clear plans on how they were going to create things.
And what it entails.
Yeah, and what the discharge would be when we talk about changing the definition of light manufacturing in the commercial district. All of that stuff was known to us at that moment. So had we thought about the capacity to implement, they seem to have thought out what it means to have a distillery and make distilled spirits. And if there's none of that as part of this, just an idea saying, oh, wouldn't a microbrewery be cool? That seems very premature to discuss.
So why don't we check boxes 1 and 4 and put strong M's on 2 and 3, which is regulatory challenges and capacity. Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Transformative. I have 1 no. Any disagreement with that?
I mean, the way it's presented now, I don't see this transformative. Conceivably, a fully fledged working microbrewery downtown could be transformative, but until those questions are answered.
Am I correct in understanding there was really no public access to this building? This building was simply going to be just a brewing factory, a production facility.
Yeah.
In which case,
So people walking down Pioneer Alley wouldn't go in this shop?
I'm not sure about that. That's a question.
I think that's, and particularly, it's interesting, it's approved connectivity is checked up there, but I'm not sure, I mean, we didn't check that for several others, and
Yeah,
I'm not sure
that's-
why that,
That's left over from,
It's a mistake.
yeah, it's a mistake.
That improved connectivity is essentially only for the
For the public projects.
pedestrian improvement.
Catalytic potential.
As is.
I mean, creating a brewery that would serve beer at a sister business doesn't seem like.
Are there other
Spreads.
bars in the area?
Well, I mean, so you
That's
take
possible.
the distillery, for
Yeah.
example, that was catalytic. I mean, that was
Right.
really, I mean, if you hold that up as the model and say, what could be,
Right.
that's a great
Sure.
model.
Mhm.
As presented in the space, that doesn't seem possible here
And I think
now.
the brewery is also connected to the old Augers Books, like the building on the corner right by
The
there.
distillery.
Yeah.
This is still.
Yeah,
The distillery.
and then the production facility is up on Railroad Avenue.
Correct.
That's I guess, completely different model, or completely different impact
Right.
Correct.
than something like this.
So I'm sensing a no for catalytic.
What was,
Any disagreement?
No.
Transformative was no.
No housing.
Community and economic benefits associated with this project? Number eight.
Say no.
Oh,
Also a no. Any disagreement there?
Is there ever a point where we remove a project? Do we even do that?
No.
Yes, you
Yes,
can,
you
you
can.
can remove projects.
It sounds like we have a lot of
Consideration.
additional questions on this one that maybe could be answered.
Yep, it's all good.
We're at 4 no's, it's like, okay.
Project provides amenities that support enhanced downtown living and quality of life.
Not the brewery. It's
Okay.
just snow.
Energy efficiency, I would say probably no. Growth in local property tax base. So we'd probably give that one a yes.
Yes.
Active downtown with a strong sense of place.
If there were tasting out of this building, would that change any of your your responses, just out of curiosity?
Yes.
I think even if it was tied closer to the Pratt and the Pratt redefined itself, you know, when you had this as a component to doing something else, again, I think that it changes the whole project. But this in and of itself, to me, doesn't really,
So there's another element, I mean, the Pratt Hotel is on the small project list
for painting.
for painting windows, interior improvements, right? I don't know whether it's of any interest to, I don't know that we could tie them together, I know we had this conversation.
I mean, there's space in Fukin, right? I mean, I don't know who owns, I guess I'm not saying like the actual, like, I just don't know the scope, the total scope of the project. There's a lot of potential there.
Right,
I'd rather see the building repainted than, like, the production facility right in downtown, I don't think has a high positive.
so if this were not, I'm just asking, if this were not a brewery, but it were like a tap room, would that feel different to you all?
Different story, but.
Yes,
I see.
yes.
So it's the manufacturing
Yeah.
that feels, okay.
I think even if you made it space to move all the alcohol vendors from the farmer's market into some sort of like distillery taproom tasting thing, it would be sort of a neat concept.
All right, I'm sorry to interrupt, I was just curious. So you guys were on 12, active downtown?
Yeah, 12 we put as a no. 13.
Maybe.
Opportunities for a variety of skills and salary, I mean, it seems small.
Maybe a master.
What?
Maybe a master.
Right.
It's the one that, yes.
What do everybody feel about 13? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Monday.
Funding criteria. I think there's alternative sources for microbrewery projects. I don't know if you wanna step in on that, but I believe the state has other funding sources for those kind of projects.
Yeah, I mean, I would just put it at whatever we're marking this, either yes or no, that, I mean, if it makes some sense and is eligible for this project, I
Yep.
guess I'm just thrown a little bit by the question that it's wording, but it's an applicable use for this sort of funding, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I would just leave it as,
Potential to leverage additional private and or public funds.
I mean, if he's putting up a match, that's private funds.
Yeah.
Preferred match. Do you need a preferred match?
Just want to jump in about the alternative funding really quickly, which is that something we haven't really mentioned tonight is projects can be included in the strategic investment plan, but not recommended for funding, which elevates their status, we've talked about this before, elevates their status for other state funding. And it's sort of a good way to deal with projects that you know, are maybe not quite at the readiness point that some of the other ones are, but are still, could be something that's good. And maybe is, you know, something that could, something like this, which could access a lot of different pots of funding,
and I think you have that.
potentially. So
So
the
then-
project that doesn't get selected for the final slate isn't necessarily, you know, removed or, you know, have any kind of negative connotation. It can still be in the plan even. And that's sort of a line that this group has to decide, you know, by the next meeting, is which ones are not included at all, which ones are selected for funding, recommended for funding, and which ones are just in the plan as sort of potential future projects. Just-
I think with that recommendation here, what you have, the project has support, which I think we all want to support anything that's being done downtown, but it should be a pipeline for other funding sources. I mean, is it perfect sort of slide in? But I mean, we can finish doing this and do it however, but I mean, as you said, there's a category for it.
Public support on this project?
I would say yes.
People love beer. Obviously, that doesn't impact diversity of housing. Provides diversification of business to support needs of Cooperstown residents. I don't know if it diversifies it.
There's a lot of.
A lot of beer available on Main Street. Connects people to the community. I would say accessible. No. Environmentally sustainable downtown, we have no. And boiling lots of water. Public projects.
All right. And you want to do a time check?
Just time.
It's,
So we don't have to necessarily, it doesn't have to impact anything, but we do have to reserve time for public comment. So just keep that in mind. Maybe we do that before we're done talking through all, I don't know, let's just see how it goes. But
Does anybody have a hard out
I saw
at
it.
6:30?
Let's stop that.
Well, you're still here, so it must be pretty
6:30
fungible.
6:30.
So maybe we want to allow public comment at this point, if there is any.
I mean, we could do a stripped down assessment of the public projects for now, just
stick to
doing.
the first page.
Yeah, we can just stick to the
Okay.
first page on the public projects for now, and
Yeah.
try to get through them a little bit faster, and go in depth next time, that's fine. I think they're the one we're most familiar with, sort of, so that's helpful, but, can we just go,
So are there any of the, I think the village has clear site control on all of their projects.
Yeah,
Certainly has the capacity to implement and the ability to break ground within 2 years. I don't know if there's any of these that have any regulatory challenges. We felt better about even the end of Pioneer and the.
so the only ones, so in terms of site control, I would say Fowler Lane, there's still that pinch point, that we have to look into, and I know there's,
I would say that will be okay.
well, there's a feasibility.
Oh, you're talking
study
about the pinch point with the bat factory.
with the bat factory, yeah, and so if that feasibility study doesn't come through, I don't know if we can consider that like a feasible
Okay.
alternative. And then in terms of project that, with regulatory challenges, just noting that Lakefront Park will require variance, but I think the town's pretty well with that. I don't think there's any other concerns in terms of project readiness. Yeah, Pioneer, Army Corps, there's still the Army Corps permitting question. I don't know, do we have a timeline, do we have a timeline on that?
No, but it was really kind of pulled from the phasing, you know, that is something, the Pioneer Alley project as proposed as a public project could go forward. The Army Corps is on the task now and will be providing a report that opens up other funding for dealing with Willowbrook.
Okay.
So it's really seen as a separate effect. The project is presented.
okay.
Okay, great.
So I have a question, sorry to go back to private. If Pioneer Alley moves forward, can the brewery go forward in the project timeline? I mean, if you've ripped up at the axe, right, if you're redoing Pioneer Alley and have it all ripped up, and then you would be trying to renovate a building within the same time frame, bringing in heavy equipment, does one mitigate the other from being done?
I don't see to any,
I would-
they've got access through the back.
I would think they would access from the back side of that building, because they don't even have water and sewer to that building, so they would have to be bringing it from behind, you know, anyway.
Right. In the interest of time, let's run through and answer the transformative and or catalytic question for each of the village projects, rather than talking all the way across the line, because I think that's the important piece. So, Doubleday Field, transformative. That was Mr. Catch down there, right?
It was, I have other thoughts on it.
I would say yes. I think improving the quality of the field has the opportunity with the other improvements that have been made to bring bigger and more impactful tournaments into the town. So I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts on that. Definitely catalytic. Definitely catalytic. Fowler Lane. Oh, now they're in the right order.
Sort of.
I'm getting excited.
I'm far from perfect, everyone, turns out.
So Fowler Lane, I think again, this contributes to, if we agree that Doubleday Field and is transformative and catalytic, I think Fowler Lane is a piece of that, improving that whole area. So I would check the box for both of those.
Yeah.
Grove Street.
Transformative,
No, sorry.
You have to concur.
catalytic,
Sure. Right, I mean, the whole point is put the nuisance wayfinding to drive people to down Grove Street or Railroad Ave. So I mean, that could foster other stuff.
This is just the pedestrian improvement.
If this
It's not
just is the
wayfinding.
pedestrian, the wayfinding is the upper main.
I take it back.
So, no?
I don't think, I mean, I can't think of how many times I've seen you walk around there. Well, I'm not there as much as you, so, sorry.
The main traffic, if there's any traffic on that area, to the trolley lot, which is almost like a crosswalk with suffice, $300,000 to be left for a crosswalk. I know it's much more than that, but, you know, that's, when you compare it to some of the other municipal projects, it's lower on the list.
So no for both? Hoffman Lane. That's the next one?
I would say it's transformative because it links the main street and people there to Lakefront Park. It improves a pedestrian one-way vehicle street for economically for the businesses that are there. It makes the lane look more enticing to any businesses on that.
I would agree transformative. I don't know about catalytic for this one.
I don't know.
I think just from all the visitors who walk out of the front of the museum and go, there's a lake here. I think that project could go a long way towards better meeting people where that.
Okay.
What do you have next? Lakefront Park.
Transformative?
Yes.
Catalytic.
No.
Pioneer Alley.
Did you have nothing to say about Lakefront Park?
I think we just discussed it, sorry.
We're just trying to run through them quickly, but certainly if anyone has any further comments.
Transformative,
but no,
not
it's not
catalytic.
catalytic. It's sort of the two ones we've resolved of just getting through.
Do you have a differing opinion?
Pardon me?
Do you have a differing opinion?
Yeah. From what I have seen, we're talking about Lakefront Park, right? And when we go down the street, you have something in the park, or in where the street is. And I would prefer that what goes there goes over in the park, not where the people who live there have this project right in front of them. They're putting something out front, correct?
That's the plan.
But for,
Yeah, it's sort of rain gardens to deal with stormwater and kind of a cantilevered at the bottom of the street. It doesn't go into the water or really extend out far, but it does give ADA access, visual and seating wise, to viewing the lake. Yeah, it's a viewing platform.
What was the public support for this?
34% in terms of the goals, but that makes sense because it's a public park project. And then, will the project help transform downtown, got 27%. That's just the question though, we just said
That's a
transformative
snapshot.
potential.
So pretty low.
Pretty low. We can come back to this as well. I don't think these projects are projects, and so if you guys have all of this material at this point, we can come locked and loaded for next meeting.
And I think there's probably stronger opinions on this one than a whole lot of the other.
Yeah, I think it's worth reviewing the public input.
Yeah.
Pioneer Alley improvements, that is one of the higher public, that's second highest to the small project fund, so.
It is really, it is the only space that I'm kind of embarrassed of when people come here. But, you know, I mean, even Hoffman Lane, while it could certainly be improved, that alley is just,
It's an alley, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one would be really transformative. And I know in one of our other discussions, we talked about it being a pipeline because it wasn't ready due to all the private sort of business impact. Is that still a problem?
We did get a number, 2 letters of support for private businesses that back up to it. And they emphasize that the use, enjoyment, and functionality of Pioneer Alley is essential to their work. The question was really whether the project could be expanded to include private ownership, but I think that's a larger project that's not really within the village's purview right now.
I would say this is transformative.
Okay.
There's a lot going on here, and again, that's an alternative route to Doubleday Field.
Okay, and then the last public project is Upper Main Street wayfinding. I should have put the map on this slide, I'll put it on next time, but it's just looking at different wayfinding signage between the county building, a number of them in the county building, and then moving up Upper Main. Transformative.
I don't know about transformative, but I certainly think catalytic.
Any thoughts on that?
Agreed.
Agreed? All right. Okay. So as far as next steps, I'll put in my actual spreadsheet. If you guys are able to, in the next couple of weeks, review the public projects, the public input that we received for the second round of public input on the projects, and maybe come with your assessments so we can just run through them really quick. In the meantime, I have a very clear sense of the questions that we're asking all the applicants, and I will try to get you the information that you need well before the meeting so that we can have looked at it and see whether that changes our assessment on any of them, okay?
Do, folks, sorry.
That's okay, I've got a crazy thing. How's
I'll
that?
get in there first then. Do folks feel interested in having another work session before the final LPC meeting? We could do something virtually just to go through, for instance, the public projects in more depth, ask any questions, address some of the, questions that we've had about the projects that Adriana's gonna go get answers about in the next couple of weeks. That's an option. We can certainly do that if people feel like it would be helpful. We could do it in person, we can also do it, on a call.
I think if we're gonna discuss public projects and have public comment, it's gotta be in person. We won't get as much public comment.
That's fine, but we still, at a certain point, we're time limited, and if this group has to have a discussion to talk about questions or whatever, it's helpful to reserve a little bit of extra time so we don't end up at the, last meeting being time short, which is what I want to do.
I think it would be conducive. I don't know what the other New York Forward or DR.
There's plenty of New York Forwards who are doing an additional, either a second work session or an additional LPC meeting, which sort of extends the timeline, and is a little bit different. Given the amount of projects, I think it's certainly warranted.
Yeah,
But we don't have to do it in person. We can do it on a call, we can do it at any time of day. I mean, we can figure out when it makes sense for people to do it. But
I think
Ken looks like he doesn't want to do it.
I think it'd be beneficial simply because having heard about the other New York Forward communities, we did end up with the most projects.
We have
the most to
There's a
review.
lot.
And so it's all pretty meaty, and I think to do everyone a service on it, all the projects that have been proposed, I think it would behoove us to have another meeting and to gather.
Are people comfortable with a virtual meeting?
Yes.
Any no's?
I prefer in person, I just think they work better, but I can.
That's understandable. Does anyone else care?
Everyone cares.
I know, I mean, one way or the other.
Either way works.
In person is probably better, because there's gonna be a lot less interaction with Zoom. We can Zoom if it needs to be, but
It's local planning.
we're all pretty local. So Zoom versus here. Sorry. Not you guys.
Why don't you
Is
send
this
out
another?
some times? I don't think we need to do it now, unless people feel like we need to schedule it now, but we can send out a poll for times and try to get as many people as possible. And look at our own calendars and sort of see when it makes sense for, because Adriana's also, I gotta get the information before we have the meeting, so.
We've got a bit of a crunch, but
So just understand, we'll be in touch about
Okay, now this is not about buildings, but I had heard this in the very beginning of all of this. Someone was saying, and I don't know whether it means anything or not, but they don't want cars in the middle of the streets. Now, just in where the buildings are.
that. Which
No,
part?
no alleys, just the main street in Cooperstown.
Oh,
No cars.
Yeah, I had heard that and I wondered why I don't hear it anymore.
there are cars in the middle of Main Street. What do you mean?
Two-way traffic.
Do you mean,
make it a pedestrian.
I think it might.
Right where the red light comes
Uh-huh.
and it goes to the other end of the street. That's what I heard. Now, whether it means anything or not, I don't know.
that might have been during the pandemic, that was being tossed around, I know, the Main Street becoming a pedestrian walkway, but that's the only thing I
I
heard.
think it was only ever talked about in regards to discouraging through traffic of the two, lane alley projects. So,
At least in the capacity of this
you know,
project.
yeah, so.
There may have been other planning initiatives that have happened before this program, but there's no proposal to,
Right.
for that.
I just brought it up because I remembered hearing.
We did
it.
talk about something similar, for, you
Yeah.
know, generally you wanna, when you, improve the pedestrian, friendliness of a space like Pioneer Alley, you wanna discourage through traffic to reduce conflicts between two users, vehicular and pedestrian. So that might have been what you're thinking of. I don't think we talked about it for any other street
Not
or
like those two.
Okay,
We do public
Sure.
comment?
Public comment?
Yep,
Yes.
go ahead.
No. Any public comment?
When I lived down on the lower Pioneer Street, and I was up at the firehouse taking a look at the proposals for the viewing dock, whatever we're gonna call that, at the end of the street. And I don't know that it's an appropriate use of this type of funding opportunity. It was also paired with a relocation of the parking lot up on Lake Street that is used to access Lakefront Park. And it said, although I haven't seen any alternative plans, that it would be relocated. I don't know whether you can call a parking lot historic or not, but I believe in this case, it's part of a 100-year-old plus, I don't even know more than I do about it, fixture of that park. And I urge you not to change that and relocate it. These two items, the viewing dock and the parking lot relocation, should they go forward, would impact neighboring residences. And I don't know that we want to have a public project that negatively impacts a residence in the village. I don't think it's fair to the residents, and I don't see the net value of it actually initially, intrinsically anyway. In terms of the relocation of the parking facility, I understand there's some kind of, there's a proposal to relocate it. It didn't say exactly where, although I am aware that maybe the residents that would be impacted by this may have seen a schematic or some kind of a proposal for this. Anything that brings traffic next to a residence in this village on purpose is something that I oppose. And I ask all of you to put yourselves in the position of living next to a parking lot that's never been there, that relocates an historic use of lakefront property land. And now you've got people coming and going, maybe at night, car doors opening and closing, lights on and off, traffic up and down. This is not something I think we want to do to any village resident. And our neighbors are here. Patsy is a neighbor of mine, and Dr. Cooper and his wife are here as well. They would be directly impacted, in my view, by the relocation of that parking lot. So I urge you to withdraw this from consideration for this funding. Is it catalytic to Main Street? I think catalytic has been defined, used, watered down somewhat. I can't see this where that's catalytic. I understand improving Hoffman Lane, certainly. Hoffman Lane is kind of a mess. There's a restaurant there. It connects to the alley where the brewery was proposed. Lighting that at night would take it down to Lake Street, and if you're trying to direct traffic to Lakefront Park, that closes at darkness. So I don't see necessarily using some of our valuable funds to put lights on that street. So those are the points I'd like to make. Thank you for all your diligent work. I sincerely care about the village. I attended an HPAR meeting about 3 weeks ago when the village commissioned that particular board to sit. The intention was to maintain and preserve what we have here. And I happened to accompany a friend who was trying to remodel a very modest home in the village and understood the value of the HBAR at the end of that meeting and is more than willing to comply. And I think in terms of removing an historic structure, what's historic? Take the 1880s vintage house on the corner of Grove and Glen Avenue, where that 3-unit apartment project is being proposed. Is that something that we want to do? If the HBAR board had to rule on that, in my view, and I know you referenced it tonight, I'm not sure how they feel about that. I think they would want us to do that. Do we need more housing? Is that an appropriate use of that particular property? Frankly, I don't think so. Does it need to be located someplace else in the village? Do we need more housing? It's all you hear around here is we need more housing. So I hope that the housing is proposed is affordable, and we'll do what we want for the village, and we'll give us that catalytic category of response and effect. Why? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. Are there any other public comments?
Yes, I'm happy to appreciate the next. I guess I was a little, after listening to the discussions about housing on Grove Street and Rapid Avenue, that we weren't interested in having sidewalks on Grove Street and in that intersection of Grove and Main. I walk there all the time, Jeff.
I realize that
And
now.
probably many of you have seen it. And it's dangerous, and it seems like there's a parking lot there for the trolley, and often people who are visiting, they come to the conclusion that you can park there for free and walk easily to Main Street. And as you're walking by Fairfax and you're walking by the distillery, and so it's nice that they have that flow. But sidewalks, not having sidewalks on the street in this village is, well, I think it's just a mistake. Unacceptable. And so I just wanted to speak up because I think the sidewalks there support some of these other projects that you're proposing. And so just a thought. It seems like the two things didn't match up. You know, if you have one, then you're going to do the other.
I'd like to just assure you that even if it's not included in New York Forward, it would be a village priority, the sidewalk there.
Well, I hope as a villager that the money comes from,
Ashley?
The one that lives next to the parking lot, the lot, we're moving the parking lot over into, and I wanted to just say, I'm like really impressed with what you guys are doing. I love these projects, there are most of them I really like. Joe Membrino took me out and showed me the plans for that. We took a tape measure, we measured, there was a stone wall, it came about halfway across that lot, and there was to be a stone wall, and I wasn't particularly bothered by that. My biggest concern was it doesn't end up having a stone wall, or it goes further than they said it would go. I don't want it to come more than halfway about, I think is what they proposed, they said 20 feet toward my house. I only own 6 inches on that side, so I know it could come like all the way to the wood. And I don't want to be somebody who's in the way of people doing good things. You're obviously doing good things, but I just wanted to voice that I'm watching like that line. Come all the way over.
Totally understandable, and I want to assure you, you'd have input on that project. These are, not only is it seeking funding here, but we've sought another grant on that as well. So the plans would still be, you know, if any funding is secured and we are able to move forward, there's certainly would be plenty of opportunity for public comment as well.
And then the one other concern that I have with all this is, it's so great to have more housing on Main Street. It will help businesses and make Main Street better. I've always hoped that they would do that. These proposals are great. The houses where I live, many of them have no parking. My house was supposed to have parking, but I'm not really allowed to park there in the time. So, if those houses, if those residences that you put in on Main Street also don't have parking, they're all going to park down where I park, in the circle lot or wherever the circle lot ends up being moved to. So it concerns me that there are not areas in town where there's permit parking that residents can pay for, or some other way of making sure that there's residential parking, both for the places on Main Street. I would like to have it down where I live also. I think that could get to be a problem if you build a lot of apartment units and don't make any parking. And in the winter, because in the winter then you close down the parking on the street. So, you know, there's not any parking in the winter either in a lot of cases, so that concerns me. But those, other than that, it's wonderful that you're doing all this, and it's great. So thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Thank you all for coming.